Debt is the most severe kind of impoverishment, and people who borrow quickly are frequently slow to repay. China understands this better than most. It has created a belt around India by utilizing its checkbook policy, limiting New Delhi's policy making. Now, India is attempting to level the score with its own parallel deliberations called the Necklace of Diamonds. Its objective is to build a containment block around China, stretching from Central Asia through Mongolia, Japan, Vietnam, Indonesia, Singapore, Seychelles, Oman, and Iran. New Delhi is conducting joint defense training and combined weapons exercises. It is extending its economic partnerships and establishing industrial corridors, and it has lately struck game-changing weapons deals. For India and China, strangling the other is central to their geopolitics. Whether through a string of pearls or a diamond necklace, each aspire to control Asia-Pacific and leave the other economies in ruins. Hello and welcome to Economic News. Please hit that like button and subscribe with all notifications turned on so that you won't miss any of our upcoming videos. Now, let us get back to the video. Like a magnificent palace, India is proud, yet its long, twisting coastline exposes it to the elements. The Indian Ocean contains roughly 1/5 of the water on the planet's surface. It encompasses 3 continents, 28 nations, and is a vital route for international trade connecting the Pacific and Atlantic Oceans. While the Indian Ocean offers riches through trade, it has also historically served as a point of entry for imperial powers. Now, China seeks to maintain that policy, with a string of pearls playing an important role. It connects Mombasa, Djibouti, Gwadar, and Karachi, as well as Colombo and Hambantota, to Chattogram, Sittwe, and the Coco Islands. Like a pearl diver, China has thrown a wide net in search of valuable pearls from the depths of the Indian Ocean. But geopolitics is frequently driven by an insatiable desire. China is actively negotiating dual-use rights at Oman Duqm Port, developing a deep-water port on Kenya's Lamu Island, and pressing the Maldives for a submarine facility on the Marau Islands. China's debt trap program, however, has created a trail of failed promises, with each pearl added to its string. Countries that are in debt and unable to repay their loans are pushed into making geostrategic compromises. Understandably, there are many sources of dissatisfaction. India is attempting to profit from these issues. As a result of this policy, New Delhi intends to construct a security umbrella by strengthening its naval bases overseas, developing new military alliances, and boosting its force projection across Asia-Pacific. The ultimate objective is to bring China's string of pearls to a halt. Since the news broke, India has been on a diplomatic tear, signing partnerships left and right. Seychelles decided in 2015 to build a naval outpost on Assumption Island, solely for the Indian Navy. Having a presence in the Seychelles would provide India with a base of operations on the African continent. With the proper equipment, the Indian Navy might oppose China's presence in Djibouti and Kenya, among other places. Assumption Island is located slightly north of the Mozambique Channel, through which much marine traffic occurs. A year later, in 2016, Iran signed an agreement with India to construct its first deep-water port at Chabahar. Through Chabahar, India will be able to connect to the North-South Transport Corridor, which connects Mumbai to Moscow via Iran and Azerbaijan. Having a stake in Chabahar strongly contradicts China's presence in Karachi and Gwadar Port. In addition to the Iranian port, India gained access to Oman's vital port of Duqm. The agreement was inked in 2018, and by establishing a presence in the Arabian Peninsula, India increased its seaborne hydrocarbon imports from the Gulf. Also, because Duqm Port is positioned directly between Djibouti and Gwadar, it acts as a contrast to those Chinese locations. What makes Duqm unusual is that it is also located near the Strait of Hormuz, one of the world's most important choke points. Thus, India is killing 3 birds with 1 stone. Also in 2018, New Delhi inked an arrangement with Singapore to provide logistical assistance to the Indian Navy, including rearming and refueling at Singapore's Changi Naval Station. The Singapore agreement differs from earlier agreements in that it enables India to protrude into South China Sea. Of course, one such facility is insufficient, so India inked a pact with Indonesia the same year to ensure military access to Sabang Port, which is conveniently placed at the northern entrance to the Malacca Strait. Sabang Port, which is around 40 meters deep, might be used by India to station submarines. In any case, the Malacca Strait handles over 80% of China's crude oil and natural gas imports, making it a strategic risk for Beijing, but a strategic potential for New Delhi. Similarly, India has been militarizing its Andaman and Nicobar Island archipelago, which is located north of the Malacca Strait, since 2020. The more assets the Indian Navy can bring to the perimeter, the more negotiating power New Delhi acquires over Beijing. But India is also striving to improve relations with the countries bordering China. India and Mongolia agreed in 2015 to build a bilateral aviation corridor to enhance commerce, tourism, and people-to-people contact. Mongolia thinks that India can negotiate on an equal level with either Russia or China, which would help Mongolia balance its policy making. In addition, in 2015, Indian Prime Minister Modi embarked on a grand tour of Central Asia, meeting with leaders from Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan, Kyrgyzstan, and Tajikistan. Central Asia is a region brimming with opportunity. It contains hydrocarbon reserves, valuable minerals, uranium deposits, hydroelectric potential, and millions of customers. Trade between India and Central Asian nations has more than quadrupled since Modi's visit and is expected to increase further. The more India's dominance in Central Asia, the greater its ability to limit the impact of other states. Later, in 2017, India and Japan created the Asia-Africa Economic Corridor Program. Its purpose is to build infrastructure, stimulate economic growth, and increase New Delhi and Tokyo's influence while challenging China's supremacy in Africa. Overall, India has maintained a cordial relationship with virtually all of the countries bordering China. Yet, it is not all strawberries and flowers. As compared to China's string of pearls, India's diamond necklace is often regarded as inadequate. This loss of faith is most obvious in the ASEAN area. While ASEAN members recognize India's numerous qualities, they mistrust India's determination and competence to contend with China. The majority of this skepticism originates from India's infamous bureaucracy and its failure to deliver on previous commitments. There is instability even outside the ASEAN bloc. Several of the previously agreed upon transactions are in jeopardy. In the Seychelles, for example, China has considerable lobbying weight, and Seychelles has wavered on its obligations to both India and China. Nevertheless, due to the country's severe sanctions, Indian enterprises have had difficulty doing business in Iran. Workarounds are continually being explored in order to protect Indian enterprises from secondary punishments. China is also more prosperous than India. It has the ability to deposit money where India cannot. So far, China has invested over $60 billion in Africa's part of the String of Pearls, while India's greatest investment has been $8 billion in the Chabahar port. Several of these disadvantages are now outside New Delhi's control, but one area in which India has supervision and has slightly deteriorated is armed sales. For example, India has established coastal radar stations and control systems in Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, the Seychelles, and the Maldives. And while these defensive systems are welcomed, China has given its partners with more modern weaponry like submarines, combat planes, and so on. Arms sales are an excellent method to strengthen relationships and form strategic alliances. China has perfected the art of arms sales, and as a consequence, has expanded its footprint throughout Asia-Pacific. But India is learning from its errors and has begun to capitalize on the arms sales market. BrahMos Aerospace of India reportedly proposed to supply supersonic missiles to Vietnam and the Philippines as soon as December 2022. Both countries are on the outside of China's influence and are profoundly distrustful of and hostile to Beijing. The BrahMos is the world's fastest cruise missile, traveling at nearly 3 times the speed of sound. It can carry a warhead weighing 200 kilograms and be launched from submarines, warships, airplanes, and land launchers. Clearly, China is upset that these weapons are going to Vietnam and the Philippines, but that is the whole idea of grand strategy. Whether it's the string of pearl rules or the diamond necklace, India and China have the right to suffocate the other by dictating trade conditions. It's war by other means, and as New Delhi pushes its necklace of diamond plan and makes it more competitive, arms sales will become increasingly important, which is unsurprising. The selling of weaponry is synonymous with the sale of influence. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you have more time to watch some videos, please do check out our other videos in our channel. Goodbye now and always take care.